Today, we are diving right into the middle of a literary firestorm. We're going to break down author Lionel Shriver's really controversial novel, A Better Life, and her arguments on immigration and Western culture, which, by the way, is a view she says the mainstream is trying to shut down.
So, how did the book go over? Well, let's just say it didn't exactly get a warm welcome. Big outlets like the New York Times and the Atlantic, they were pretty harsh. The Times even called it sour and hectoring. Ouch.
But Shriver's reaction to all this, she actually laughed. She said she found the predictable outrage entertaining. And this, right here, is where our explainer really kicks off, because we need to understand the perspective she believes is being totally ignored by the literary world.
Okay, so what makes this book so explosive? It's because Shriver completely flips the script. You know, most novels are about the immigrant story. Well, she decides to put the host population front and center. Giving a voice to a group she feels is usually just painted as the bad guy. And here's her whole motivation. She feels that in literature, any kind of criticism of mass migration is set up like a straw man, a flimsy argument that's super easy to knock down. Her goal? To give that criticism a serious, thoughtful voice for once. So, where is all this coming from? For Shriver, it's not just theoretical, it's deeply personal. Her own journey as a legal immigrant is really the bedrock of her entire critique of the system.
She talks about her own experience trying to immigrate to the UK, and it sounds like a total nightmare. Just endless paperwork, officials who were suspicious of her, a system that seemed designed to make her give up. She even admits she probably only got through because she pulled rank using a newspaper article. And yeah, she says that whole thing left her with a chip on her shoulder.
And this slide just lays it out perfectly. This is the split in Shriver's mind. You have legal immigration, which is this frustrating, suspicious process. And then on the other side, you have what she calls the liberal mythology around illegal immigration, where it's treated as this pure, innocent project that deserves nothing but help. She even goes after the title of her own book. She says the phrase, "a better life," has turned into this magic wand that justifies breaking any rule. Her comparison is pretty blunt. She says, look, your life would probably be better if you stole a pony, but that doesn't make it okay. She thinks the phrase has become a license to pillage. So, from her critique of the system and the language we use, Shriver starts to dig even deeper. She gets into the psychology of it all, trying to figure out what she thinks really motivates the progressive side on this issue. And in her view, it's a pretty complex cocktail. Part of it is performance, looking good for your friends and for yourself. Then there's the identity piece, the need to feel like you're a good person. And often that means defining yourself against someone you see as a bad person. But then she adds a really provocative ingredient to the mix, pure spite. And she uses this quote to really hammer home that idea of spite. She talks about a grim satisfaction and even compares it to the former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair rubbing people's nose in diversity. For her, it's not just about helping. There's an aggressive, almost vengeful side to it. All of this leads her to coin a new term, suicidal empathy. And what she means by that is a kind of compassion that's gotten twisted, where you start to prioritize the stranger, the other, over your own family, your own community, your own countrymen. She sees it as a complete reversal of our natural loyalties. And this idea of suicidal empathy, well, it's the jumping-off point for her biggest and by far most controversial claim, that what we're seeing right now is nothing less than a modern clash of civilizations.
Yeah, she does not mince words here. When it comes to mass Muslim immigration into Europe, she uses a very specific, very loaded word to describe it: colonization.
Now check out this slide because it really visualizes her argument. She's saying that the modern West, with its what she calls dilute Christianity and its secularism, is just culturally unprepared for this kind of encounter. She questions if it can really stand up to what she describes as the medieval religious passion of Islam.
So if you follow that logic, Shriver says you have to take the stated goals of Islam completely at face value. And if the ultimate ambition is, as she claims, a worldwide caliphate, then that leaves everyone with a really stark choice. You're either helping them get there, or you're trying to stop them. In her analysis, this whole situation creates a super strange alliance. She makes the claim that the progressive left and Islamists have found common ground because, as she puts it, they both hate the West. But for Shriver, this idea of a West in trouble isn't just a political talking point. She actually bakes it right into her novel, using her characters as a giant metaphor for what she sees as the decline of Western civilization itself. At the heart of it, you have these two characters.
First, there's Nico, the Western son. He's passive, he's just living off his inheritance without adding anything to it. And then you have Martine, the migrant. She's active, she's driven. Shriver actually calls her a better American than he is, simply because she wants it more.
And to really drive this point home, she brings up a bit of history. Back in the early 20th century, about a third of European migrants who came to the U.S. actually went back home. And why? Her answer is simple. There was no welfare state. It was sink or swim, a totally different world from the one we have today.
So ultimately, where does she lay the blame for this decline? Well, it's not on some external enemy. For Shriver, the problem is an inside job. She argues the West is sick with a form of self-criticism that has become, in her own words, pathological and profoundly destructive.
And that leaves us right here, with the huge, provocative question at the very center of her work. In our modern world, is the West's compassion its greatest virtue, or could it be, as Lionel Shriver seems to suggest, a fatal flaw that might just be its undoing?